The Legend of Jigong Chapter 36.
Okay, let's unpack this because the story doesn't start in like a peaceful, meditating monastery. It starts in the smoldering, apocalyptic aftermath of a total catastrophe.
The visual of the ruins is just so striking.
Yeah, it's dawn. And the Shingyan temple has literally burned to the ground overnight. The text is brutal in its specificity here. It says there is not a piece of tile left.
Which means we aren't talking about like a bad kitchen fire.
No, we are talking about an ice-melting, stone-disintegrating level of destruction, and crawling out of this wreckage is a man on the brink of death.
Right, this is Lu Miaotong. And the description of his condition is incredibly grim. It's highly grounded in this horrific realism.
It's super visceral.
He is covered head to toe in severe burns and blistering wounds. His body is essentially shutting down from the massive trauma of the fire. And this is exactly where Ji Gong, our eccentric divine monk, steps into the frame.
Right, so Ji Gong approaches him, and Lu Miaotong is in absolute agony, but he has this rare moment of stark clarity.
He realizes why this happened.
Yeah, he confesses that the temple's senior monk had been committing these terrible deeds, and he actually recognizes the fire as a form of karmic retribution, like a systemic purge of the temple's corruption.
So he begs for mercy. He's gasping, like, I didn't offend you, save me.
And Ji Gong offers him a magical pill, but before he can even administer it, we just get hit with this dark, incredibly cynical dose of reality.
The bureaucrat.
Yes, a local official, a government bureaucrat, literally steps between the monk and the dying man to stop the healing.
This is such a phenomenal moment because it exposes the underlying mechanics of local bureaucracy in this era. The official literally says, don't stir up trouble.
Yeah.
If you give him that medicine and he dies, who takes the blame?
I have to say, I read that and my jaw just dropped. You have a man actively dying, his skin is basically blistering off, a monk is offering a cure, and the official's only thought is liability.
It's all about the paperwork for him.
It feels like a twisted version of modern-day Good Samaritan laws, you know, where people are terrified to perform CPR because they might get sued for breaking a rib.
That is a perfect modern parallel,
Yeah.
honestly. But to understand why this official reacts this way, we really have to look at the historical realities of the local administrative system in dynastic China.
Right, because it wasn't just about being a jerk.
No, exactly. Local magistrates and ward officials were often held strictly accountable for any unnatural deaths in their jurisdiction. Under these systems of collective responsibility, an unexplained death wasn't just a tragedy.
It was a career-ending administrative disaster.
Precisely. If Liu dies from the fire, the official can classify it as an act of heaven-like, an unavoidable accident. But the moment a wandering, undocumented monk gives him an unknown substance and he dies.
Suddenly, it's a homicide investigation.
Right. It requires paperwork, coroner reports, and potentially a huge trial. It makes the official look totally incompetent to his superiors.
So it's easier to just let him die.
Basically, yeah. From the bureaucrat's perspective, it is infinitely preferable to let a citizen slowly, agonizingly burn to death from a natural disaster than to introduce an anomaly that might ruin his quarterly performance review.
Wow.
The law here is not a shield for the vulnerable, you know. It is a liability management tool for the powerful.
Which is just so bleak. It actually takes Lu Miaotong himself pushing through his incredible pain to gasp out and legally indemnify the monk.
He has to literally clear the monk of wrongdoing while dying.
Yeah, he says, if I die, it has nothing to do with the monk. It's my own fate. And only then does the crowd pressure this cowardly official to back off. So they finally dissolve this magical pill in a bowl of hot water and give it to Liu.
And this brings us to one of the wildest physiological descriptions of magic I think I've ever read.
Oh, absolutely. Because normally in fantasy tropes, healing is so clean. Like a warm, glowing light washes over the hero, the wounds gracefully close, and they look perfectly fine.
Like in a video game.
Right. But that is definitely not how Ji Gong's magic works.
What's fascinating here is how the text treats divine healing not as an erasure of damage, but as this violent biological purge.
It is incredibly visceral. He drinks the water, and immediately his stomach starts violently rumbling. The text literally gives us the sound effect, gululu.
So descriptive.
And then all of those horrific burn blisters covering his body instantly burst. But they don't just pop, they dissolve into toxic water.
Yeah.
The poison just liquefies and pours right out of him. It's like a mass evacuation of toxicity.
To understand the mechanism behind this, we really have to look through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, in that paradigm, severe burns are not just localized tissue damage. Fire is considered an external pathogenic factor, specifically what they call fire poison or hoodoo.
So it's like the fire itself infects the body.
Sort of. When fire poison invades the body, it traps toxic heat deep within the organs and the blood.
So you really can't just slap a bandage on it.
Exactly. You cannot heal hoodoo by just closing up the skin. If you trap that toxic heat inside, the patient will actually die of systemic failure or massive infection. The heat must be aggressively cleared and purged from the body.
Which usually happens through, like, the digestive system.
Yes, typically through the bowels, the urine, or the pores. So when Jigong's pill causes Lu's stomach to rumble and his blisters to burst into toxic water, the text is actually describing a highly accelerated, scientifically logical medical procedure within the framework of TCM.
That's so cool.
The body has been poisoned by the trauma of the fire, and that pathogenic heat is literally draining away.
It makes the magic feel so grounded, you know? It's messy, it's leaky, it's pretty gross, honestly, but it works. The pain stops immediately.
And the crowd's reaction completely shifts.
Right. The bystanders who just 2 minutes ago were completely siding with the bureaucrat suddenly flip. A guy in the crowd yells out, "Wow, truly a god or an immortal. What a miraculous medicine."
And that single sentence completely pivots the entire narrative.
It really does, because Jigong hears that voice, turns around, and spots the man who spoke. And without a single word, Jigong hawks a loogie and spits right in his face, just bay.
And this man, who has just been spat on, is Chen Lang, known in the underworld as the Holy Hand White Ape, a master thief.
And his immediate reaction is to turn and sprint away as fast as he possibly can, which kicks off this massive foot chase.
Okay, we established Chen Lang's outfit in the intro, but I really want to dig into it because it says so much about his character.
Oh, please do. It's my favorite part.
He is an 8-foot-tall master thief. Normally, we associate thieves with stealth, wearing dark clothes, blending into the shadows.
Like a ninja.
Exactly. But this guy is wearing giant pearls, moon-white silk, and a bright sapphire cloak. He is dressed to be the absolute center of attention.
The juxtaposition is just brilliant.
It really is. His title, Holy Hand White Ape, implies agility, right? Sticking to the shadows, operating in the unseen margins of society. But his outward presentation is one of maximum visibility, immense vanity, and extreme wealth.
He is literally wearing his stolen riches on his head in broad daylight.
But the irony is, he actually thought he was hiding.
Yes. He'd been running from Jigong all night in his dark thief gear, thought he lost him, and then changed into this extravagant daytime outfit specifically to blend in with the high society crowd.
He went there to check on the burned temple, totally confident his disguise worked.
And Jigong shatters that illusion in 1 second with a single spit.
And that brings us to the psychology of the chase itself. Chen Lang takes off sprinting, but mid-sprint, he has this profound cognitive glitch.
It's hilarious. He stops in his tracks and realizes, wait a minute. Yes, I am a thief. But I wasn't stealing anything just now. I was just standing in a crowd. Why on earth am I running?
It's the universal feeling of seeing a police car in your rearview mirror and immediately panicking, even if you're driving completely under the speed limit.
Exactly. But wait, I have to push back on the spit itself for a second. We've talked before about how eccentric Jigong is, but isn't spitting in someone's face just like a convenient excuse for a monk to be abusive?
It definitely looks that way from the outside.
Right. If anyone else does that, it's straight up assault. How do we separate genuine spiritual instruction from a guy who just really enjoys humiliating people?
That is a critical challenge, and it's something scholars of Zen history wrestle with constantly. How do you categorize the actions of the crazy monks?
Yeah, how do you justify it?
To understand Jigong's action, we have to look at the psychological mechanism of the Zen slap, or the katsu. In certain Zen traditions, enlightenment isn't reached through slow, gentle realization.
It's not just sitting quietly on a cushion.
No, it is reached through sudden, shocking disruption.
A disruption of what, exactly?
A disruption of the ego's thought loops. Modern neuroscience talks about the default mode network, right? That's the part of the brain responsible for our internal narrative, our ego, our constant rumination about the past and future.
The voice in our head that never shuts up.
Precisely. Chen Lang is trapped in his ego. He thinks he's so clever. He thinks his extravagant disguise makes him invisible. He thinks he's in total control of his environment. He is locked in the self-aggrandizing thought loop.
So the spit isn't about insulting him.
No. The spit is a violent sensory shock designed to completely short-circuit that network. It isn't about punishment, it's about forcing him out of his habitual mind and into a state of raw, unfiltered presence.
That makes total sense because, I mean, it works. The spit completely shatters his vanity. Instead of fighting back or running away, Chenling stops, realizes the absurdity of his own fear, and turns around to confront the monk.
And when he does, he has this massive, impulsive, emotional swing.
Yeah. He goes from fleeing in absolute terror to suddenly dropping down and begging Jigong, "Take me as your disciple, I want to become a monk." Just like that, the Met Gala thief wants to join the monastery.
Which demonstrates exactly how little he actually understands about what he is asking. Jigong immediately shakes his head and says, "You are a thief. How can you possibly become a monk?"
He totally calls him out.
And he tests him, laying out the absolute foundational requirements of monastic life. The 3 refuges and the 5 precepts.
Now, assuming you, our listener, are familiar with the basic tenets of Buddhism, you know the 5 precepts. No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants.
Right, and we obviously don't need to define what stealing or lying is. But put yourself in Chenling's shoes for a second.
Oh, man.
This isn't just about trying to be a slightly better person on the weekends. His entire identity, his livelihood, his social standing in the underworld, the holy hand white ape, is entirely predicated on breaking the precept against stealing.
His whole career is stealing.
And the precept against killing. He's a martial arts master and a criminal. Violence is his primary tool for problem solving.
So the nuances of monastic law are deeply, deeply incompatible with his ingrained psychological habits. Yet Chenling's response reveals this dangerous level of delusion.
He's so confident.
He confidently tells Jigong, "Oh, I can follow those rules easily. I have no parents to tie me down, no wife or children to worry about. I have no worldly attachments."
He literally views renunciation as a physical checklist. I don't own a house, I don't have a wife, therefore I am enlightened.
Exactly. It completely misses the internal mechanism of restraint.
Renouncing the world isn't about emptying your house, it's about emptying your ego. It is about severing the internal attachments to anger, greed, and impulse.
Which he has clearly not done.
Not at all. Chenliang thinks that because he is a lone wolf, he is free. But as we're about to see, he is entirely enslaved to his own impulses.
But Jigong, in his strange, chaotic wisdom, just decides to play along. He says, "All right, if you really think you can do it, I have business to attend to, but go to the capital city, Linen, and wait for me."
Chenliang is thrilled by this.
Yeah, he asks where exactly in this massive metropolis he should wait. And Jigong, completely deadpan, just says, "Wait for me under the bed."
Under the bed.
Under the bed. And Chenling just bows and says, "Understood. Under the bed. I will find it." And he just sets off for the capital.
This raises a really important question about Jigong's teaching methods. What is the actual mechanism of this instruction?
Is under the bed like a literal tavern name that just got lost in translation?
No, not at all. Jigong is employing a koan. But we often misunderstand what a koan actually is in the West. We tend to think of it as a riddle with a clever answer you're supposed to guess, almost like a crossword puzzle.
Like the classic, what is the sound of one hand clapping?
Exactly. But a koan is not meant to be solved rationally. It is a cognitive trap. The mechanism of a koan is to generate what Zen calls great doubt.
Great doubt. What does that feel like?
It is designed to create a total bottleneck in the rational mind. You chew on it, you analyze it, you try to solve it, until your logical brain completely exhausts itself and just gives up.
Because there's no logical answer.
Right. Only in that state of profound exhaustion can true, non-conceptual realization occur. Jigong is giving this highly arrogant, impulsive thief an unsolvable task, specifically to break his ego and test his patience.
And spoiler alert, Chenliang fails the test spectacularly.
Completely falls apart.
We jump to Chenliang arriving in Linen, which is the capital of the Southern Song Dynasty, and the atmosphere completely shifts here. We've gone from the mystical, burned-out temple in the wilderness to a dense, chaotic, hyper-bureaucratic urban center.
It's overwhelming.
He goes straight to the famous Lingyan Temple, assuming the monks there will obviously know where their famous brother Jigong is.
The monk's response provides a perfect character witness for the reality of dealing with the divine eccentric. They essentially shrug and say, he might be gone for 10 days, he might be gone for 5 months. We have absolutely no idea.
So Chenliang is completely unmoored. He just starts wandering the dense streets of the capital, going up to random locals, asking, "Excuse me, where is under the bed?"
And people just stare at him like he's lost his mind.
His frustration just builds and builds. The cool, collected, holy hand white ape is sweating, irritated, and looking like a complete fool. Finally, his patience completely snaps.
The great doubt was too much for him.
Way too much. He goes into a bustling winehouse, the Tian restaurant, marches upstairs, and orders a massive table full of food and 2 pots of wine.
And in doing so, he instantly shatters the 5 precepts he just swore he could keep.
Right, the intoxicants.
He is actively consuming intoxicants. He hasn't even been a disciple for 48 hours, and the moment he experiences mild administrative frustration, his internal restraint collapses, and he turns straight to alcohol.
It proves everything we just said about his lack of internal discipline. So he's sitting by the window, drinking his wine, stewing in self-pity, when the harsh, brutal reality of systemic failure violently intrudes on his afternoon.
Very stark transition.
Down in the street below his window, a massive disturbance erupts.
This scene is pivotal. It zooms out from Chen Liang's internal spiritual struggle to the macro-level societal decay of the capital city itself.
Chen Liang looks down and sees a small sedan chair surrounded by heavily armed men with swords and clubs. Inside the chair, a young woman is weeping. It is a brazen kidnapping happening in broad daylight in the middle of the street.
Everyone can see it happening.
And then a man named Mr. Wang stumbles into the crowd below, covered in blood, having been severely beaten. Chen Liang calls the waiter over and demands to know what the hell is happening.
The waiter acts as our local informant here, pulling back the curtain on the economic and judicial machinery of Linen. And it all centers around a tycoon named Su Beishan.
Right. The waiter explains that a local merchant, Han Wencheng, had a business fail and ended up owing Su Beishan a debt of 200 taels of silver. So Su's enforcers showed up to collect.
But Han didn't have the cash on hand.
No, but he offered a perfectly standard commercial solution, right? He basically said, give me a few days to sell my property and I will pay you back in full.
To understand the gravity of this, we need to contextualize 200 taels of silver. In the Song Dynasty economy, silver was highly, highly valuable.
It's not just a few bucks.
No, 1 tael could buy significant amounts of grain. 200 taels was a massive commercial fortune, roughly equivalent to a lifetime's earnings for an average laborer. This is high-stakes commercial debt.
Wow, okay. But Su Beishan's men refuse to wait for the real estate sale. Instead, they decide to seize collateral right then and there, and the collateral they choose is Han Wencheng's innocent sister, Jinyang.
It's just horrific.
They literally abduct her from her home to settle a commercial spreadsheet. When her brother tries to stop them, they beat him. When a neighbor, Mr. Wang, steps in to say, hey, you can't do this, they beat him to a bloody pulp too.
The sheer brazenness of this act is what shocks Chen Liang. He asks the waiter the logical question, how can they do this in the capital? Where are the magistrates? Where's the law?
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the waiter's answer reveals the terrifying truth about their society. He says, Su Beishan is a gentleman connected to the highest officials. He has massive wealth. Who can afford to provoke him?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the stark thematic contrast the author is viewing. Think about the first segment.
With the burned temple.
Right. In the wilderness, at the burned temple, justice was delivered by a divine monk. It was absolute, immediate, and entirely bypassed human law.
And now we're in the city.
Now we are in the political heart of the empire, the absolute center of human law and order, and what do we find? A system that functions perfectly, but only for the rich.
It feels like an autoimmune disease. I mean, think about it. The legal system is supposed to be the immune system of the society, right? It's supposed to protect the vulnerable citizens from predators.
That's the theory, yeah.
But here, the immune system is completely corrupted. It is actively ignoring the parasite Su Beishan and leaving the healthy tissue, the innocent citizens, completely defenseless. The law just doesn't apply to the wealthy.
That is a phenomenal metaphor. The legal system in Linen isn't broken, it has been weaponized. Wealth and political connections act as an absolute shield against consequence.
So they can do whatever they want.
Su Beishan can commit assault, battery, and human trafficking in broad daylight, surrounded by witnesses, and the local magistrates will do absolutely nothing because he is a vital part of their financial ecosystem.
Chen Liang hears this, and his reaction is incredibly visceral. He slams his cup down. He says, if this is how corrupt things are right at the feet of the emperor, what must it be like out in the provinces?
He's disgusted.
He gets the address of Su Beishan's mansion, a massive estate marked by 4 dragon-claw pagoda trees. He finishes his wine, and he makes a decision. And his decision is where the moral compass of this story just violently spins out of control.
It really is the ultimate paradox of vigilante morality.
Chen Liang says to himself, since the law won't do anything, I will. Tonight, I'm going to break into his house and murder his entire family. I will show him that heavenly retribution is real.
Let's just pause and fully unpack the monumental hypocrisy happening here.
It's staggering.
Merely hours ago, Chen Liang begged a monk for spiritual enlightenment. He explicitly vowed to follow the precept of no killing.
He essentially promised he wouldn't even swat a mosquito.
Exactly. Yet, at the very first exposure to societal injustice, what is his immediate, unquestioned reflex? It isn't to rescue the kidnapped woman.
Right, he doesn't plan a rescue mission.
And it isn't to steal the debt contract to destroy it, which he easily could do as a master thief. His instinct is to commit premeditated, wholesale slaughter.
Mass murder.
He plans to massacre an entire household, which would undoubtedly include innocent servants, wives, and children, all under the self-righteous banner of delivering heavenly retribution.
It really strips away all the romantic glamour we usually attach to vigilantism. We love the trope of the lone hero stepping outside the law when the police are corrupt. We cheer for the chemotherapy attacking the disease.
But we forget how damaging that is.
Right, this text shows how incredibly toxic that chemotherapy actually is. When the system fails and vigilante justice takes over, it doesn't operate with a scalpel. It operates with a sledgehammer. It is wildly, terrifyingly disproportionate.
It forces us to confront a deeply uncomfortable reality about taking the law into your own hands. Does fighting a monster inherently require you to become a worse monster?
Chen Liang certainly thinks so.
He is claiming the moral high ground against a corrupt kidnapper, completely blind to the fact that he is a narcissistic alcoholic thief plotting a mass murder. He's in absolutely no moral authority to act as judge and executioner.
But his ego completely blinds him to that hypocrisy. Night falls, and he is locked into this bloodbath. He finds a quiet alley, strips off the pearls and the sapphire silk, and changes back into his tight, dark night-walking gear.
He's back in his element.
Yeah, he scales the city walls, leaps silently across the rooftops, and navigates the labyrinth of the capital until he spots the 4 Dragonclaw pagoda trees. He has found the Sioux Mansion.
The author executes a masterful shift in atmosphere here. We transition from the noisy, brightly lit, systemic chaos of the city streets into the hyper-focused, claustrophobic silence of a nighttime infiltration.
It's so quiet.
Chen Liang is no longer the lost disciple. He is the apex predator of the underworld.
He bypasses all the guards, drops into the inner courtyard, and creeps up to the window of the main house. He pokes a tiny hole in the paper window lattice and peers inside. And the visual contrast the text gives us here, compared to the violence Chen Liang is planning, is just stunning.
It is a portrait of absolute, insulated, elite domesticity.
Inside, the room is bathed in the flickering light of oil lamps. It's incredibly opulent. There's a rosewood table covered in expensive antiques, and sitting there is the madame of the house, Su Peishan's wife, a woman in her 40s. She's surrounded by her maids, Qixiang and Qigui, just sipping tea.
Yet, even inside this bubble of wealth, there is a palpable undercurrent of anxiety. The madame complains that her husband hasn't returned, and she feels uneasy having no men in the house this late at night.
The dramatic irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. She's nervously sipping tea, worrying about security, completely oblivious to the fact that her husband is out managing the fallout of a violent kidnapping.
And that a highly trained assassin is currently staring at the back of her neck through the window, plotting her murder.
To cut the tension in the room, the maid suggests they play a parlor game. They ask the madame to tell them riddles.
Using domestic games to reveal character or foreshadow doom is a classic literary device in dynastic fiction. But the content of the madame's first riddle is genuinely startling.
Oh, we have to talk about this riddle because it completely caught me off guard. The madame, this wealthy, elite matriarch, smiles and says, "All right, guess this. The flower girl is the cheapest, with an oiled head, sending off the old and welcoming the new, a one-night bed. Countless guests come and go, sharing endless affection, who is willing to lightly rub her jade-like body."
The language is incredibly explicit.
It is entirely built on heavy body prostitution metaphors.
Hmm.
Oiled head, sending off the old and welcoming the new, a one-night bed. And this isn't in a rough tavern. This is the high society matriarch telling it to her servants.
It's very unexpected.
The maids guess for a while, they can't get it, and she finally reveals the answer. It's a sesame stalk.
A sesame stalk.
Yes, because you oil a pan with them, you rub them to get the seeds. They are temporary. The maids laugh and beg for an easier one, but I was just stunned by the crude humor in this elegant setting. It completely undercuts their refined exterior.
It does more than just humanize them, it subtly indicts them. It aligns the inner household with the corruption of the outside world.
Like it seeps through the walls.
Exactly. They are physically insulated by their wealth, but their minds are still dealing in transactions, in the buying and selling of bodies, in the cheapness of life. It perfectly mirrors exactly what her husband is doing out in the city, treating a young woman's life as cheap transactional collateral for a debt.
That is a brilliant connection. The corruption permeates all the way to their parlor games. So the maids ask for another riddle, and the madam says, okay, a white snake is black in the river. On the banks of the Wu River, a red light rises. The white snake drinks all the water of the Wu River. When the water is gone, the white snake dies.
Now, if we connect this second riddle to the bigger picture of the narrative architecture, it is a phenomenal piece of foreshadowing.
Break that down for us.
On a purely literal level, the answer to the riddle is an oil lamp. The white snake is the wick. The black river is the oil in the bowl. As the wick drinks the oil, the red light rises. When the oil is gone, the flame dies.
It's very clever.
It is. But pay attention to the specific vocabulary she uses. A red light rises. Destruction. Death. She is sitting in her safe, wealthy bubble, literally speaking words of fire, red light, and death into the room.
Setting the stage without knowing it.
She is conjuring the imagery of destruction, having absolutely no idea that outside her window, the agent of her own destruction is waiting in the dark to bring actual fire and death to her family.
It's terrifying. It's like watching a horror movie where the teenagers are telling ghost stories around a campfire while the killer is standing right behind them in the trees. The tension is wound as tight as it can possibly go. The maids are thinking they're just opening their mouths to guess the answer to the oil lamp riddle.
And then the author executes one of the most abrupt, shocking climaxes imaginable.
Right as they are about to speak, a massive, deafening sorash shatters the silence of the night outside the mansion. The text describes it as a sound that startles the heavens. The women scream, jump up, and look out the window into the courtyard.
But they don't see Chen Liang attacking.
No. What they see is a blinding, brilliant column of red light shooting straight up into the starry sky.
And that is exactly where the chapter abruptly ends. The final line is simply, there is a sudden shocking event. What did Chen Liang do in the Su mansion? Listen to the next chapter to find out.
I was yelling at my book. It is the ultimate cliffhanger. What was that crash?
We have no idea.